You know that feeling, right? You walk out of a training course, you feel great, like you've totally got it, and then a week later, it's gone. Well, today we're going to break down a powerful blueprint for learning complex skills in a way that actually makes them stick. For real.
I mean, we've all been there. You sit through the course, you cram for the test, you pass, but then when you're back in the real world and you actually need that skill, your mind just goes blank. It feels totally disconnected from what you learned. So what's going on here? Why does this happen all the time?
Well, a huge part of the problem, the main culprit really, is how we've been designing training for decades. The standard approach is to break a complex skill down into these tiny, bite-sized, isolated pieces. The hope is that we can just reassemble them later, but that's exactly where it all falls apart.
So this leads us to two completely different philosophies. On one hand, you've got the traditional atomistic approach. It's kind of like trying to learn how a car engine works by studying every single screw and bolt individually. You never see how they fit together. But on the other hand, you have the holistic approach. This is like getting into a simple go-kart on day one. You're dealing with the whole thing right from the start. Because the real magic isn't in the parts themselves, but in how they all connect and work together.
And it turns out, this old-school learning in pieces method consistently causes three major predictable problems.
So first you get compartmentalization. Your brain puts all the information in these neat little boxes that never, ever interact. Then there's fragmentation. You get really good at practicing one tiny piece of the puzzle, but you never see the whole picture. And these two things lead directly to the big one, the transfer paradox. It means what you learn in the classroom stays in the classroom, failing you the second you face a real, messy, unpredictable situation. Okay, so if that's the problem, what's the fix? Well, it requires a pretty fundamental shift in how we think about learning, moving away from all those tiny pieces and focusing on the whole task. And this quote just nails it. To really learn a complex skill, you have to practice the whole skill. Because a skill isn't just a pile of its parts. It's about the dance between those parts, the coordination, the timing, all of it.
So what does this actually look like in practice? It means that instead of learning bits and pieces, you engage with the entire task from day one. You just start with a really simplified, manageable version of it. Think of it as the tutorial level. And then, as you get better, the tasks get more complex, more realistic, and more challenging. You level up.
Now, this isn't just a vague idea. This holistic approach is actually built on a very clear four-part blueprint. It's often called the 4Cs/ID model, which is short for four-component instructional design. You can think of this as the engine that makes this whole approach actually work. To make it all happen, the blueprint relies on four key components that all work together. You've got learning tasks, supportive information, procedural information, and part-task practice. Let's break down what each of these actually does.
Okay, everything starts with the learning tasks. These are the absolute backbone of the whole curriculum. We're talking about authentic, real-world problems, case studies, or projects that force you to learn by actually doing the thing you're trying to learn.
Of course, you can't just throw people into the deep end. That's where supportive information comes in. This is the why behind the task. It's the theory, the mental models, the strategies you need for all the tricky, non-routine parts of the job that require real critical thinking.
And for all the stuff that's repeatable, there's procedural information. This is your how-to guide. It gives you just-in-time, step-by-step instructions for the things you do the exact same way every time. The whole goal here is to make these actions automatic.
And finally, for those specific little skills that need to be pure muscle memory, we have part-task practice. Now, this is used very sparingly. It's just for drilling very specific routines until they become totally second nature. Think of a surgeon practicing sutures over and over, or a pilot running through emergency checklists. So, the big question is, how do you actually build a course using these four components? Well, designers don't just throw them all on a blender. They use a really systematic 10-step design process. But here's the catch. It's not a simple checklist where you just go from step 1 to step 10. It's more of what they call a zigzag strategy. Think about painting a house. You don't put one coat of primer on every single wall in the entire house before you move on, right? No, you finish one room, then maybe start another, maybe go back and touch up the first one. It's a process of constant refinement. So even though there are 10 detailed steps, you can really group them into three main missions. First, you build the backbone. That means designing and sequencing all those rich learning tasks. Next, you build the support systems around them with all the info the learner needs. And finally, you figure out which specific skills need to be drilled for total automation. Okay, so we've got the blueprint, we know how it's built, But what's the science that makes this all so effective? Why does this approach actually create skills you can use? Well, the answer lies in how our brains handle information.
The entire model is built on a solid foundation called cognitive load theory. And it's based on one simple but really profound fact. Our working memory, the mental desktop where we process new information, is tiny. It's incredibly limited. So real learning only happens when we're careful not to overload it. And this is where the genius of the blueprint really shines. It's expertly designed to manage that limited mental energy. The learning tasks control the difficulty by starting simple and slowly ramping up. The supportive and procedural info acts like a cheat sheet, giving you what you need exactly when you need it so you don't get overwhelmed. And that part task practice puts routine skills on autopilot. Every single component is designed to free up your brain so you can focus on what really matters, actually learning and solving the problem. So, what's the big takeaway from all this? It's simple. Stop learning in pieces. When we build training around whole, authentic tasks from the very beginning, we create skills that finally stick and transfer to the real world. This model gives us the blueprint to do just that. So it leaves you with a question to think about. If you could redesign any learning experience in your life, what's the first thing you would change?